it going, everybody? So we have a fun review today as we're talking I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025. It was only a matter of time before finally they got to I Know What You Did Last Summer as far as giving it the legacy sequel treatment. Even if the results generally vary from project to project, I always try my best to go into these things semi-optimistic at the very minimum. As many of you are probably well aware watching the channel, I'm a huge horror fan, and largely Scream is my favorite horror franchise. So because of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer both being written by Kevin Williamson, I've always kind of considered I Know What You Did Last Summer a sister franchise. The first two films in the franchise I always have a lot of fun rewatching, which is what I did in preparation for the new one. Unfortunately, since those first two films, they've really struggled on figuring out a direction to take the franchise. I'm talking a terrible straight-to-video sequel and a TV show on Amazon. Even though I personally thought it was just okay, it was canceled after one season, though it was produced by James Wan. Putting all of those things to the side, I must admit I'm genuinely impressed by a multitude of aspects of the approach of the 2025 I Know What You Did Last Summer. Initially, I was worried that this was going to just be a copy and paste legacy sequel, going through the motions, trying to emulate the original, which the Inciting Incident definitely does emulate it. But besides that, Jennifer Kaytin Robinson takes some pretty big swings in modernizing the franchise for a new generation. Certain decisions I think certainly won't be for everyone, but for me at least, I dug most of them. It's evident to me that she's someone who is the rare example of a filmmaker that loves and cares about the franchise that she's working on. How I Know What You Did Last Summer approaches the story, weaving together the whodunit slasher elements, is incredibly thrilling. Even if it's a story structure we're well aware of, you know, something happened, a year goes by, and someone's terrorizing them saying they knew what they did last summer. How the events unravel in this legacy sequel really keep you on your toes, slowly building tension and drama amongst the teens. The secrets kept between them bubbling up to the surface, hitting their breaking point once they start getting killed off one by one in these brutal yet entertaining slasher set pieces. This might come off as slightly controversial, though I do love the Fisherman character. Arguably, in the 2025 film, this might be the best well-rounded iteration of the character in terms of just the horror elements, you know, the kills, the creativity. Don't get me wrong, the hook forever is going to be iconic, but you know, they've got to spice things up for a new generation of horror fans. So there's a lot more physicality and creativity to the ways that he kills these teens, along with the fact that he's setting these kind of booby traps for them as well. Do a pretty good job updating the Fisherman to make him more imposing and menacing. One of the major factors into why this iteration of I Know What You Did Last Summer works so well definitely boils down to the cast at large. Most of the ensemble cast here is surprisingly great. Chase Sui Wonders, Madeline Klein, Jonah Hauer-King, many more. They bring a modern flair to similar archetypes established in the original, while many of them manage to be pretty memorable. Not every character in this slasher is memorable. A few of them don't get a lot to do. They're one-note characters that more or less are just here to pad out the body count number. There's a handful of major standouts amongst the ensemble, though. Chase Sui Wonders probably is my personal favorite of the cast. He does an exceptional job leading the ensemble, essentially acting as the new generation's Julie James, trying her best to navigate and piece together the mystery of who's trying to kill them. There's Madeline Klein's character, who also is great. In essence, she more or less fills the role of Helen Shivers in this iteration. Personality-wise and how she's used in the film, some of the chase sequences she's involved in reminded me a lot of Helen Shivers, although they don't reach the level of intensity as the Helen Shivers sequence in the original I Know What You Did Last Summer. Regardless, Madeline Klein, I think, has a great career in horror films if she does want to pursue more of them. Legacy characters and how they're utilized can truly make or break these legacy sequels at large. For every Scream or Halloween, there's other examples that are horrible, like the most recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Of course, because I love the original two I Know What You Did Last Summers, I was very hyped about the fact that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. were returning to reprise their roles. In my opinion, I think they're utilized pretty perfectly in this new I Know What You Did Last Summer. I actually love how the story decides to incorporate the two of them. They slip back into their characters exceptionally and paint an interesting picture on how Julie and Ray would now be still haunted by the trauma they went through. In that regard, it is very similar to some of the other legacy characters I mentioned. At this point, that has become the archetype of these characters revisiting their trauma from decades ago. Both of them are involved a whole lot more than I anticipated in the overall plot, assisting the new cast. I would have to say that both of them have some of the best sequences in the entire movie. If you're someone that loved the original two films and are skeptical about how they're being utilized, I would say say they do those characters justice. And that's besides the amount of awesome callbacks sprinkled all throughout the film involving them, pictures, characters, even quoting lines of dialogue that we know from those movies you probably already seen in the trailers, Julie yelling about, "What are you waiting for?" Essentially what I'm getting at here, without giving away too much, fans should be pretty hyped to see all of those little details from the beginning all the way through the credits. Speaking of the ending, the reveal, all of those elements, no spoilers obviously, but it's an aspect that not only am I kind of torn about, but how audiences may react to the ending at large. There's parts to it that I think could certainly divide audiences, and this is a franchise that is known to have pretty odd endings overall. So that's certainly an aspect I'm going to be very intrigued about how audiences are going to receive how this film concludes. All around, I have to say, I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025 is a genuinely fun legacy sequel. It does the formula justice, how it carves out an intriguing, thrilling new story that isn't afraid to take some big swings either, while managing to show a level of reverence for the original that's quite refreshing. Who knows what's next for this franchise, if it's going to connect with modern audiences. Now, I don't think it's going to hit the same levels of success as Scream 5 or Scream 6. Part of me does hope that it's at least a decent level of success where we potentially could get a follow-up to this and kind of reinvigorate I Know What You Did Last Summer, since this is a legacy sequel that I genuinely enjoyed. So make sure you share your thoughts down below. Would you get a chance to check out 2025's I Know What You Did Last Summer? What did you think of the film? Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? Thank you guys. As always, checking out videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.